the mid-23rd century, and the young James Kirk has stolen his stepfather's old Corvette and is taking it on a joyride across the Iowa landscape. His stepfather calls to berate him.
Hey, are you out of your mind? That car's an antique. You think you can get away with this just because your mother's off planet? You get your ass back home now. You live in my house, buddy. You live in my house, and that's my car. You get one scratch on that car, and I'm gonna whip your ass.
But Kirk doesn't give a damn. Without even slowing down, he unlatches the roof and lets it fly off, definitely getting it severely scratched in the process. Kirk's friend Johnny is hitchhiking. Again, Kirk doesn't even slow down. By now, Kirk's stepfather has called the cops, and one of them is on Kirk's tail.
Citizen, pull over.
Kirk tries to escape from the policeman. At first, he thinks he can outdrive the flying bike, but then, all of a sudden, he realizes he's headed for a cliff. He's now going so fast that he just can't stop in time. He skids sideways and leaps out of the car, barely surviving the destruction of his stepfather's antique Corvette, which falls to its doom. Despite everything, he remains defiant of the law.
Is there a problem, officer?
Citizen, what is your name?
My name is James Kirk.
According to my analysis, Kirk, his stepfather, the policeman, the Corvette, and the cliff each represent pieces of a gigantic puzzle facing our current civilization here in the early 21st century. How can we survive our history of reckless disregard for ecological limits? Kirk, the young daredevil, symbolizes that selfish recklessness, that utter defiance of natural law. His stepfather represents the more abusive wing of the environmental movement, the kind of activists who are always yelling, "Wake up, sheeple!" and threatening consumers and corporations with scare stories about the dire consequences of their carelessness. Their predictions may be accurate, but they don't usually lead to the behavior changes that activists are looking for. The harsh, preachy tone of these environmental messages can lead to the perverse consequence of people seeing it as their moral obligation to rebel against them. Johnny is just there to emphasize Kirk's selfishness. As an exemplar of the worst aspects of so-called rugged individualism, Kirk would never stop in the middle of his joyride just to help a friend. He only cares about showing off his ill-gotten vehicle and demonstrating how fast it can go. He's like a mainstream economist reveling in a period of sustained acceleration in the already frantic pace of the market, generally known as economic growth. By contrast with Kirk's stepfather, the implacable policeman represents a slightly friendlier approach to natural limits.
Citizen, pull over.
He just points out that Kirk is in for a world of hurt if he continues to defy those limits, and that stopping now will make things easier on everyone. But it's too late for that now. Kirk is headed for a cliff, and thanks to his defiance of the law, he's no longer able to save the Corvette, which represents industrial civilization itself. In my reading, the filmmakers posit that the collapse symbolized by that cliff is now inevitable. The only thing we can hope to save is humanity, which is definitely in for a very bumpy ride, but might be able to keep feeding its teeming billions through a heroically rapid switch to intensive organic farming techniques, as recommended in this astounding 2013 report by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which explains why this scene is set on agricultural land in rural Iowa. Renowned primatologist Jane Goodall once said, "We humans are a problem-solving species, and we always do pretty well when our back is to the wall. The young James Tiberius Kirk represents that genius for pulling victory from the jaws of self-destruction, and now that we're almost over the edge of the ecological cliff, we'd all better learn how to do that ourselves before we end up going down with the sinking ship, or car, of civilization as we know it.